This video is sponsored by Blinkist. Go to Blinkist.com/theplainbagel to get a week for free plus 25% off a full year subscription. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Plain Bagel. I'm your host, Richard Coffin. We made it to 2022. Congratulations and Happy New Year to all of you. And to celebrate this turning of a new leaf for the new year, I wanted to put out a video on a topic that's near and dear to my heart, spreadsheet programs. Now, if you haven't yet clicked away from this video, you might be thinking, Richard, what the hell? All these other YouTube channels are talking about the latest and greatest NFTs, and you're talking about Microsoft Excel. I thought 2022 was going to be the year that your content got good. Well, gotcha. But in all seriousness, I mean it when I say that I think spreadsheet programs are one of the most important softwares in the world of finance. I use it every day for my job as an investment analyst, and it's actually played a really important role in my career development. And whether you want to work in the finance field as a professional, in which case you almost need a proficiency in spreadsheet programs, or if you just want to manage your personal finances, whether it is to make a budget yourself or possibly analyze your own stocks, I think it's really helpful to have a base level understanding of these programs. So today I'm going to highlight 4 reasons why Excel is really helpful in the world of finance, the things you can do with it. It's not really going to be a tutorial, but I will highlight some key functionalities that you can look up after the fact. Because if you know what to look for, it's really easy to learn these things. It's just, knowing where to start. And through the video, I'll actually show us some examples of how I use Excel for my day job and the types of tools I've been able to make, because I think it demonstrates the cool sort of stuff you can do with spreadsheet programs. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The first reason Excel is really helpful is that it makes it really easy to manipulate data. Now, this is probably a really obvious one, but most of us know that you can do basic math and stuff like that in Excel. And this is really helpful when it comes to analyzing stocks and looking up different ratios and things like that. As an example, let's say you wanted to analyze a company's income statement. Sure, you could go to their regulatory filings and look at the PDF of their income statement and, take notes and stuff like that. But if you really want to dive deep into stuff and, kind of take your analysis to another level, it's helpful to export stuff to Excel. For US companies, for example, the SEC has a really handy function where you can go and search for their most recent filing. And then if you go open the filing, go to the interactive data segment, you can see all their financial statements there and export them directly to a spreadsheet. And that will put all the numbers there in the program so that you can then do all these calculations and find out different information. You can calculate margins to see how much money the company is making and whether that changes from year to year. And I also like to do that with the expenses to see what percentage of sales are taken up by expenses and whether that's improving or, deteriorating over time. And you can calculate things like growth rates. I like to use the cumulative average growth rate to see the average percentage growth that these figures are increasing, things like sales, profits, and whatnot. And that's just stuff with basic math, but there's a lot of other stuff you can do in Excel. You can build tables so that you can sort and filter different information. Pivot tables, which are great for organizing unorganized information that you might export from somewhere. There's an endless library of different formulas you can do in Excel. And if you want to take it a step further, Excel actually comes with an analysis toolkit where you can do statistics. As a basic example, you can calculate the correlation between 2 different stocks. If you download the price information for 2 different stocks over a period of time, you can plug that into Excel and calculate the correlation between those 2 things very easily. So that's the first point. Excel as a program, really handy. It has a lot of cool functions to manipulate data. But that's pretty obvious for a lot of people, so let's get into the more interesting stuff. The second reason Excel is really helpful, especially for my current job as an investment analyst, are the add-ins. I use a data terminal at my company that has an Excel add-in, meaning that I can pull data right from the data terminal about different stocks and companies right into Excel. The way this works is that once the add-in is installed into Excel, I use that add-in's unique program language to pull information directly into Excel. So let's say I want to know a company's revenue from year 2020. I can do that right into Excel without having to Google anything. I can pull it right into the spreadsheet. Now, if you're familiar with data terminals like Bloomberg and the like, you probably know that they are really expensive. So for someone who's an amateur investor, they're probably not a viable option. I think Bloomberg memberships run somewhere in the 5-figure range for an annual subscription. So it's a really expensive service. I use a paid one at my work. So obviously not something that everyone has access to. But there are other solutions out there that would be more affordable and would have this functionality. I'm pretty sure Morningstar has one, and there are other solutions. I haven't tried any myself outside of the one I use for my work, but for sure there are options out there. And when you have that sort of functionality where you can pull data right into Excel without having to Google it and stuff like that, you can do a lot of really cool things. As an example, I made this one tool for my company. I do have to blur it out because it is proprietary for them. But effectively, I just enter a ticker for a stock I want to analyze, and it will populate the spreadsheet with all the information that I regularly look at when starting to research a stock. So right away, you can see how helpful that is for someone who researches stocks. Just by looking up a company, I can find out all the key points that I regularly research for these companies as a starting point. This isn't a all-in-one package that will then give me a decision, but it's a great point to start off on. Now, the third reason Excel is great is that it's really helpful for visualizing data. Now, when it comes to data visualization, there are other tools I use in my job, and I think if you have a research platform that you use, this might not be as important to you. A lot of research platforms will have different graphs and things like that that are pretty dynamic. You can do a lot of great things with some of these tools online to visualize information, but Excel is also a good fallback. If you have the data available, you can make a graph out of it. And we've all probably made a simple line graph or bar graph for high school. But with Excel, when you combine it with that second point of add-ins, you can make some really cool things. Just as an example, this is another chart, another tool, if you will, that I made for my company that's based on valuations. And you can see I've combined a basic valuation metric with different statistics around that measure to give me a full picture of the valuation over time for a company. So numbers are great, but I think a graph is really helpful for, better understanding and digesting information. And really that's all this is doing. We're taking data we already have access to and just looking at it from different angles to better understand what's going on. And graphs can really help with that. You know how the saying goes, a picture paints 1,000 words. It's true when it comes to investment analysis as well. So we have data manipulation, we have add-ins, and we have visualization. But the fourth reason why Excel is really helpful that will really drive home the point of how powerful a program it is the programming language. Excel has this programming language called VBA, or Visual Basics for Applications. And it lets you build these mini programs, if you will, within Excel that are called macros. And these macros can do a lot of cool stuff to automate parts of your research process. Or, when it comes to really anything you're using Excel for, it can help you automate different things. And I find this is especially helpful if you're doing something redundant with the data that you're looking at in Excel. Let's say you're going and sorting stuff a certain way and you just find that you're spending a lot of time doing this thing that's kind of mindless. It's something that you could write into an equation or something like that. Then usually you can automate it using VBA. Now VBA is a programming language, so it does require some technical understanding there. I did take a basic programming course in Java at one point, and that did help me kind of understand how this works. So you do need some understanding there. But the nice thing about Excel is that if you're using VBA, there's this really cool function here called record macro. And what this essentially does is when you hit this button and then do something in Excel, it will write the program for what you just did. And it's a great way to essentially reverse engineer a program in Excel. As an example, let's say I have all this data here and I want to just put the average in the last column for all these cells. So I can type average for that row. Then I can go to the next one, do that as I'm recording this all the while. And when I'm done, I can hit stop. I can look at the data that I've written. And if I erase all this stuff and run the macro again, it will do it automatically. Now, obviously, this is a pretty crude example. I don't think anyone would write a program just to do this basic thing. But with programming, obviously, you can do a lot more advanced stuff. And to kind of demonstrate that, I wanted to show you one final tool, something else I made for my employer that I'm really proud of. This isn't anything special. This is effectively just showing return information for a bunch of different positions. But I did incorporate a macro program into it to automate a lot of the organizing of data. So the way this works is I have a list of companies and I have some information about those companies to the right here. And then I have these three buttons on the right. The first one I click will update that information about these companies. It pulls new information from our data terminal about these companies so that it's current. The second button here simply copies and pastes the information I just added as values. And that's just getting rid of the formula so that there's less processing power required to run this third function, which once I do that, doesn't look like much, but this is the part I'm proud of. Obviously, it's nothing exceptional, but it's saving me a lot of time with sorting this information, organizing it, and pulling up comparative stats that I can use for looking at these figures. It's not something that's going to do my job for me, but it saves me a lot of time with getting certain information. And my hope in showing it is that it really just demonstrates how powerful Excel can be. You can effectively make your own programs in it. There are research platforms that will kind of replace some of these functions where you won't necessarily need Excel for certain things. But if you have nothing, if you don't have access to anything but Excel, you can still do a whole lot with just that program. And that helped me a lot to getting to where I am today with my current job. With my past employer, I built them a lot of tools to save time and automate different processes, to do quality checks and things like that. And with my current employer, both on the operational and the research side, because I do wear a couple of hats at the company, I've been able to make really cool things that save us time and help improve the work we do. So that's the video. That's why I love Excel and why it will always have a place in my heart. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to learn more about Excel, I'll leave some links in the description down below where you can do so, as well as a link to a spreadsheet I made for budgeting for one of my first videos. If you're interested in checking out a very basic template, there's nothing special, no programs or anything, but a good starting point if you're someone who doesn't really know how to use Excel. You can start with that. And I'd also like to take a quick moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Blinkist. Blinkist, as you may know, is an app that summarizes nonfiction books. So if you're someone who's set a New Year's resolution to read more or perhaps just learn more, then you might really enjoy their service. Their summaries are typically under 15 minutes and can be read or listened to. And the summaries are split into segments called blinks, so you can pick it up and put it down whenever you have the chance. There's a lot of great books on there. One Up on Wall Street's on there. Outsmarting the Crowd is a good one. And The Millionaire Next Door was one I just listened to, which was a nice piece about how most millionaires are actually decently frugal. And it dives into the idea of responsible spending habits and how most people should focus on financial independence versus just being a millionaire, because for most people, that's what actually matters. And I thought it was a good personal finance piece for kicking off the new year as well. There are plenty of other finance books on there, as well as really any type of book you might be interested in, because they have over 5,000 titles on their platform, as well as podcast summaries that they call shortcasts, and full audiobooks, which members get a discounted price for. So if you're interested in checking out Blinkist, you can use the link in the description below for a 7-day free trial, as well as 25% off the premium membership. Blinkist, thank you for sponsoring today's video, and thank you guys for joining me today and letting me gush about Microsoft Excel. It's not something I get to do often, and I know it's probably a more boring topic. There will be more interesting topics this year, I promise. Please don't leave. But it's something that I always wanted to cover given how important it's been to my career development. As always, yeah, thanks for joining me today. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys. Happy 2022. It's 2022.